Devil's on the loose and he's dancing with the mummy.
Doc Mark and Chorus, the little mummy, here to bring you another episode of Macabre Cast, where we'll be dropping R's where they belong and adding them where they don't. Okay, Cars, looks like we got a good show this week. Scary Larry is back with a review, and we've got some new movies coming out to talk about.
Well, I'm glad to know Scary Larry is back. I thought he was mad at you. You know, when you disagreed with him about suitable flesh.
Scary Larry and I can agree to disagree. We don't get mad at each other. Look, I'm quite sure there's many a film that I recommend that he's walked away from thinking, you know, what was Doc Mark thinking?
And no Grim Kim this week. Too bad, because I got her a Valentine's Day gift.
A gift? Really?
Yeah, a swear jar.
Oh, come on now, Karis. Are we ever going to let her live that down? She dropped one naughty word. Not really a big deal. Let's let this go.
On Halloween night, 1977, America gathered around for a live TV event that shocked a nation. What happened was real. What you are about to see is the recently discovered master tape of what went to air that night.
That was the opening narration for the teaser trailer for a film called Late Night with the Devil. Now, I'm really excited about this. This is me all day long. It's got the 70s look and feel, and even the narrator's voice. It's straight out of trailers from the 1970s. And apparently this is about a master tape of a late night show that occurred in 1977 that was satanic orientated and unleashed evil upon all those who watched it, or onto the world, or something to that effect. And I cannot wait for this film.
Doc, isn't that Halloween 3? Season of the Witch?
Karis, you know full well that those were Celtic druids, not Satanists. Come on, don't always dampen a good thing, okay? This movie looks really good, and I'm very excited about it.
I hope Scary Larry sees it, reviews it, and doesn't like it, just to get you back for suitable flesh.
Okay, please do not create a rivalry where there isn't a rivalry. But if Scary Larry does go to see it, note, Scary Larry, this is a Shudder original film that's coming out to theaters. I don't want you driving 26 miles to see it when you could just wait a little bit and see it on Shudder, just like me. Also coming out soon is a movie called Long Legs, about an FBI agent tracking a serial killer for some unsolved crimes, and then realizes that he has some kind of connection with this particular person, and then really has to change it up. This looks very good too. Quiet Place Day 1. This will be the third Quiet Place film, and we'll see how it all began, which is kind of what I thought the second movie was going to do, and it just gave us a little tease, but this is a full movie of that. We'll see. Also, there's going to be Blumhouse is doing The Wolfman. I'm trying not to get my hopes up too much about this, but I'm hoping we get something that's as good as Invisible Man was. And Cemetery Man, a very Evil Dead style movie that has not been around, or has been very hard to find since the 90s, is now on Shudder this month in February. You got to check this out if you can. Again, this was a tough movie to find, or very expensive to get on DVD anyway. So that's Cemetery Man on Shudder.
Is this something you could share with the rest of us, Amazing Larry?
Greetings, Dark Mark and Karis the Little Mummy. Scary Larry here, and it's been a horror movie-filled weekend. I watched some old, some new, some bizarre, including 1993's Kronos, The Dijin, and Skeletons in the Closet, to name a few. Today I'm going to submit my review of 2024's Lisa Frankenstein, written by Diablo Cody, who brought us that horror gem Jennifer's Body, and was directed by comedy legend Robin Williams' own daughter, Zelda Williams. This is her full-length movie directorial debut. Now, I went to Thursday night early release with the mindset of this being a goofy horror comedy, and I was not disappointed. Now, to start off, it has a bizarre backstory. The protagonist, Lisa, had survived an attempted axe murder that claimed the life of her mother. Really, this subplot has nothing to do with the movie other than to explain why she's now part of a blended family after her father met and married Janet, an obnoxious yoga mom played by Carla Gugino, hope I'm pronouncing that right, who starred in the miniseries Fall of the House of Usher and Gerald's Game. Now, Lisa is a quirky outcast, and her new half-sister Taffy is one of the popular girls, who is desperate actually to form a closer bond with Lisa. But Lisa is more interested in hanging out alone in an abandoned cemetery where she is crushing on a young man's bust at his gravesite. Now, after a bad situation at a high school party, she stumbles her way into the cemetery and drunkenly makes a wish for the dead guy to come to life during a strange storm. Well, Lisa gets her wish when the creature breaks into her house and some hilarity ensues. Once she realizes who it is and her wish brought him back to life, she does a decent job cleaning him up after being dead a century and a half and hides him in her closet. The creature can't speak because his tongue is missing, as well as other crucial parts. Lisa and the creature end up going on a spree of collecting body parts to make him whole, selecting unlikable characters in their quest, dispatching them for those said parts. Now, set in the 80s, they make good use of a defective tanning bed as a key to making the parts work on him once Lisa sews them back on him, in a funny nod to those old Frankenstein movies. Now, can Lisa and the creature find eternal happiness before the cops and a rival goth girl take them down? I give this one 3.5 stars for its quirky humor, fun kills without gratuitous gore, and a nod to the 80s where I spent my awkward high school years.
Great review, Scary Larry. Always a pleasure to have you on board. Although, hey, I like gratuitous gore, so we might have to minus a point there. Well, from my book.
Deep Death Dive.
That's right. It's time once again for a Deep Death Dive. And this week, I'd like to discuss what psychologically bothers us and why. We may never understand. But there's always that movie, usually from our childhood, that really bothers us. And I don't even mean so much like, Jaws and We're Afraid to Go in the Water. I mean those movies that just really sunk in and weighed on us. For me, that film was The Other from 1972. I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of it. It's a series of gruesome accidents plague a small American farming community in the summer of 1935. So not really sure the age I was when I saw this, other than I was young. Haven't seen the movie since. Probably could tell you very little about it, other than there were these two twins and a lot of dream sequences, and they had a psychic link. One scene in particular weighs on me. One of these kids, he's jumping into the hay off a loft in the barn. They keep showing a close-up of this pitchfork that's hidden within the hay, And one of the times he jumps, guess what happens? I don't know why this weighed on me so much, but it did heavily weighed on me, bothered me psychologically. I have no interest in ever seeing this film again. It sounds silly, but I just don't. We may never know why certain things bother us so much, especially when we're children. But I'd like to continue this deep death dive because I'd like to hear from you. I'd like to know what movies bothered you psychologically as a child that you never really got over, or maybe even as an adult, but specifically as a kid. And do you know why they might have bothered you so much, or maybe you don't? But I'm curious to know what bothered and scared you.
Hey Doc, Mark and Karis, Horror Chat Matt here, and I just want to let you know how much I appreciate all the hard work you put into each and every episode. You always get a long work week off to a great start on Monday mornings. But with that being said, I have to take exception to some of the shots you took at Jaws 3. Why, by no means is it a good movie. I certainly don't think it's one of the worst movies ever made, and it's definitely not the worst movie in the franchise. That honor belongs to Jaws the Revenge.
Love to prove that, wouldn't you? Get your name into the National Geographic.
But it's always been a guilty pleasure of mine, and I enjoy it warts and all. And that got me thinking about, not that Jaws is a long-running franchise, but long-running horror franchises that kind of lose their direction as they keep pumping out movies. I feel there are a couple out there that do a pretty good job of keeping the tone and consistency with, say, a Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. You can sit down and watch those from the very beginning and get a pretty coherent story. By the time you get to some of the later sequels, it may lose a little steam, but overall I think they do a good job. One franchise I feel does an excellent job, although I'm not particularly its biggest fan, is Child's Play. Even with the new TV show, it's been pretty consistent. Phantasm's one that I feel does a decent job. As a kid, I watched it and had no idea what was going on. Figured I'd get it as I got older, but just going off of the definition of phantasm, which is a figment of imagination, an illusion, or an apparition, I don't think you are ever really supposed to know what's going on in those movies, just much like the characters in them. A couple of franchises that I think do a really good job, why may not be everybody's cup of tea, is the Saw series and the Conjuring universe. Neither one of them is particularly scary, but I think they tell a pretty good story from start to finish, and you're not very confused if you're watching them. Even Halloween, with its multiple timelines, you can pretty much figure things out, but a couple that I think are really bad in terms of, telling a new horror fan, hey, this is a franchise you want to sit down and watch from start to finish and just really take it all in, and you're going to be able to enjoy the ride and know what's going on. Hellraiser, why I did love the first two movies, especially the first one. After that, the third one, starting with the third one, it's all downhill from there, in my opinion. And then towards the tail end, they literally just took movies that were sitting on a shelf and they had already been made, and they decided to insert Pinhead into them and slap a Hellraiser title on it just to make a quick buck. But I think the franchise that takes the cake for most inaccessible film franchise is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The original is a masterpiece and one of the best movies in the genre of all time, with the dark and gritty, and you just feel dirty after watching the original. You get to part two, and all of a sudden it's a completely different tone, and the first time I watched it, I could not stand it. And as I've multiple viewings and over the years, I've come to understand what Tobe Hooper was going for with the satire and working in some of the humor. And it's definitely one of my more favorite sequels of any franchise. But after part two, it's all downhill except for a couple of entries. Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, Just a standard movie with a young Viggo Mortensen long before Lord of the Rings, and then Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. Again, a couple of young, fresh face Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey does a great job chewing up some scenery. And I thought that one was fairly decent up until the point where the secret organization shows up and there's no explanation why they're there. And even worse, there's never any follow-up on that in any of the sequels. The next two entries, the Michael Bay remakes. And the first one I really liked. It was slick. I may be in the majority, but I thought it was a fun, slick movie with some pretty good kills and special effects. The only problem with that is that they didn't give themselves much of anywhere to go for a sequel with some of the character decisions they made. So they were forced to make a prequel, and I always feel a prequel kind of loses its steam when you know the character's ultimate fate. And then after that, one of the worst entries was Texas Chainsaw 3D, which was supposed to be a direct sequel to the original. And they also tried to cash in on the 3D craze. And they're about 10 years too late for that. And the movie overall wasn't very good. And then definitely the worst of the series is Leatherface, direct-to-video sequel with trying to tell the story of Leatherface's origin, and just a terrible twist. Just the movie should have never been made. It's pure garbage, if you ask me. So, Dark Mark, I'm curious what you think. Are you with me on this one? A Texas Chainsaw Massacre almost being inaccessible as a film series, or do you have another film series in mind? And as always, keep up the great work. And I really look forward to, like I said earlier, I look forward to each and every new episode.
Horror Chat Matt. Mouthful Matt. Man, that was a lot to take in. Where do I start? Well, let's start with Jaws 3. I never said Jaws 3 was the worst in the franchise. I think it stinks.
Oh my gosh. Does that suck?
Is it worse than The Revenge? No, The Revenge is a joke. The Revenge is going to end up on Horrible Mention one week. Believe you me. Trust me. I realize how bad that movie is. But neither film has the look and feel of the original films. They just, it's almost like they're different movies, separate film, like knockoffs. I love Phantasm, and I love all of the sequels despite their flaws. And Phantasm was the movie I ran all the way home in the dark after seeing it on HBO one time. I had to run back by a patch of woods. But I digress. Don Cascarelli is either inept at storytelling or he's a genius. I think there's a little bit of both in there. I think he's a genius because I think at the time he did Phantasm, there was nothing of its kind, and it blew people away, and it was surreal and dreamlike. Although I sometimes think he's incapable of telling a coherent story, but then again, it is Phantasm, so it works. And again, I like all the movies. No matter how bad some of those sequels are, I still love them. Hellraiser 1 and 2 are the best, obviously. And I know that a lot of those, and I've talked about this before, I've said the same thing, how I think these were supposed to be other movies, and they put Pinhead in them. Although 4, which was the first one that people really started knocking, 4, called Bloodline, I really like 4. 4 was considered so bad. It says directed by Alan Smithee, and here's a little tip. If you ever see the name Alan Smithee, he doesn't exist. When a director wants to remove his name from a film because it's so bad, they put the name Alan Smithee on there. But Alan Smithee or no Alan Smithee, I really like Bloodline. I find that movie entertaining. The Chainsaw movies, I'm not going to argue with you there, Matt. The first is the best. It's a first of its kind, classic. And I think the 70s in general is the best decade of horror. Chainsaw 2, however, saw it in the theater, loved it then, love it now. I think it's the only real sequel to the original, and I'm sticking to that. I actually like Leatherface Chainsaw 3. I like it far better than For the Next Generation. I really dislike that movie. I find nothing good about it at all. Yes, Chainsaw 3D, not very good at all, although you'd be surprised to know what that movie was supposed to be. The original writer was supposed to be involved. It was going to be a sequel that took place minutes after the original. So many big things were planned for that film, and they fell apart. And then when Hollywood got their hands on it and took that idea, well, Chainsaw 3D is what you got. Not that great of a film. I really loved the first remake. The Michael Bay remake. I think that's one of the best remakes out there. I actually really like the Friday the 13th one too, but definitely one of the best. Wasn't crazy about the beginning, the prequel that followed it. It just didn't hold a candle to its predecessor. I don't think anything after Chainsaw 3D is worth watching, to be honest, with the exception of the Netflix show. I really liked the Netflix movie. And Leatherface was killing hippies in the 70s. It would only make sense if he was killing the woke of today. As always, Horror Chat Matt, thank you for a great call-in. Very in-depth. I love it.
Until next time, stay on the road, keep clear of the moors, and beware the moon. But most of all, be good to yourself. This is Dark Mark, signing off. See you soon.
This is a Macabre Theater production.